Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. And I really thank you so much for joining us. Today, we have a treat. We have a wonderkin. And when you're in many years as I've been in dentistry, Eric, somebody under 50 who has gotten as much accolades and knowledge and done as much as Dr. Eric Block, we are really fortunate to have him. And we're going to get into a few great topics today. But without further ado, I just want to introduce Dr. Eric Block from Boston. Eric, thank you so much for being here. It's a privilege.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really enjoy it. We're going to get right into it because there's a lot to cover. For those of you that know Dr. Eric Block, he has a tremendous podcast, and we'll let him promote it throughout, whatever he wants to say and do. But a tremendous podcast in that really did a lot of research into Dr. Block because he really gravitated to certain things that we're going to get into. But before further ado, really, Eric, I'm just curious to know why dentistry? What was your background like? Did you have anybody in the family or anything like that? But please take it away.
Yeah, actually, my dad is a retired dentist. However, I went to Tulane University and down in New Orleans. I'm originally from Boston, actually north of Boston. I currently live west of Boston, but I went to Tulane thinking I was going to apply and go to the business school there. And then I sat through statistics and microeconomics and macroeconomics, and I said, nope. And I transferred out of there, and I ended up having to choose something. So I chose psychology. So I graduated with a degree in psychology, but it was towards the end of my college career, I just missed my mouth. I broke my number 9 central incisor on a beer bottle, and I just cracked it in half. And I walked around that night with half a tooth. And the next day, I went to a local dentist in Metairie, Louisiana, and I just loved the way they took care of me and how they patched me back up. They put some composite on there and gave me my smile back. And I just loved the experience of how I walked in all embarrassed and I left with my smile again. And I thought,
Great.
you know what? Maybe this is something I could do. And I chose dentistry late. There was no pre-dental or pre-medical at Tulane. So I had to take all the science classes and DATs either during the summer or the year after I graduated. And then I applied to Nova Southeastern and I got in. I was actually the second class to graduate in '02. I went to, and this was in Fort Lauderdale, went to dental school down there.
Yep.
And then I did a 2-year implant residency at BU after and finished that in '04.
Awesome.
And I've been here practicing in Massachusetts ever since.
So if somebody termed you, you're a general dentist, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're a general dentist that does a lot of surgery and implants?
Correct.
So what was that motivating vision? Because I mean, I don't remember 20 years ago people screaming like some of us, like you and I, are talking about doing those things in your GP office and getting trained the way you got. So what was that motivating factor? You're very much ahead of the curve.
Yeah, back in '02, maybe even '01, I knew that after graduating from Nova that I wasn't going to be, either clinically ready or mature enough to go out into private practice. So I thought that, I would have to do something. So I actually matched with an AEGD or actually a GPR here in Massachusetts. And I was actually going to go there. Yet I knew I wanted to get involved with dental implants. I knew it was the future at that point. This was 2002. I'd seen a few cases and I just thought this is the future and this is something I want to get involved with. So I actually broke the sacred match and ended up doing a 2-year residency just focused on implants. And that gave me time to focus on extractions and bone grafting and the restorative and surgical aspects of implants. But it also gave me a couple more years under my belt to get a little bit more mature and more clinical for the real world.
So any of the other modalities, I'm a preacher of what I call a dental Hamsa. We have root canal therapy, Invisalign, crown and bridge cosmetics, surgical extraction, bone grafting, and implant placement. And for us, like yourself, who has these larger practices and know people, we like to keep it in-house as long as we're doing it at a level that is just fantastic. And we train these docs to get to that level. Do you just focus on the surgical aspect, which is a lot to focus on, but I mean, with everything else you got going, and we're going to get into it, but do you just do the focus? If somebody comes in with the root canal, are you giving it to somebody else? Do you do clear aligners or something like that? Are you one of those what I term, I think you are, first of all, my judge, being a 10, 12 years ahead of you, is that if you're playing with surgery, if you can really handle the surgical aspect of dentistry, you are off to the races. I mean, just cases that others couldn't do. But what is your sort of chairside acumen and comfort level?
Yeah, so I do all the above except for root canals. I refer all those cases out, or we have an in-house endodontist.
Hmm.
Why? Because I just don't like doing root canals. So, and I never felt comfortable doing them. So I refer those out. I do most of the time, I do my own placement and my own restoration. Sometimes I just place, sometimes I just restore. It all just depends on that case. But most of the time, I do both. But learning back in '02 through '04, and probably for the first half of my implant career, I was placing and restoring implants based off of 2D technology and freehanding surgery, and implants were still very stressful. But now everything is 3D planned, and I do semi-guided. Implants have become one of the most enjoyable procedures I do all day.
Sure.
And it's because of the planning. And I always say to anyone that wants to learn implants, you got to learn freehand, but enjoy guided. So, I can get myself, if the guide doesn't fit, I can finish a case freehand. But doing cases guided is just so enjoyable, and it's so much
So
better,
easy.
patient and accurate.
You know, I got to tell you why I say to you that you're a visionary and back then, because when I had a very large New York City Lincoln Center practice, multiple specialists, endo, surgery, and I felt that it was my job to bring in a lot of dentistry, which we did. We were a large practice, but I didn't go and do the implants. And if I could I feel like I short-cheated myself. I short-cheated myself in the sense that I would love to do surgery, but I always felt like if I did, I wouldn't keep the specialists. But today, I mean, there's associates I have that are doing unbelievable type of surgical work, and I'm envious of people that see the light. So kudos to you and your knowledge. Now, you went into practice, private practice. You worked for somebody for quite a while, right? Where was that?
Yeah, I was an associate for actually, I would say way too long. I associated for about 10 years.
Hmm.
I worked in, several different offices, different types of offices, which I actually recommend for a young dentist coming out to get as much experience in different types of practices,
Absolutely.
whether it's a boutique style practice, a high volume, a PPO, community dentistry, whatever it is, get a different taste, and then you can mold what you learn to your own style of practice. But I just got comfortable in the associate lifestyle, and I didn't, really pull that trigger until about 10 years in. Looking back, if I could go back to younger Blocky, I would have told him to associate for maybe 3 years and then start to pull the trigger on becoming an owner.
What did your father say? I mean, was he alive? I mean, is he a retired dentist, right? Did he give you any, like, Eric, get off of this and go open your own? Or did he say having this type of associateship is great for knowledge? I mean, what was his advice to you?
Yeah, he's retired now, and for sure we chatted a lot about it. My situation was that I was very comfortable where I was, and I did look around for other offices to buy or buy out or become a partner with. But the situation that I was in, it just seemed to work out, and now I'm, proud owner, and I live and practice in the same town in Acton, Massachusetts.
Oh, I'm
Um,
going to ask you about that. I know that. And beautiful practice, everybody. I had a real chance to dive into the website, but also take a tour. And you should see what they've got a great team, and that's what you talk about in your practice. It's all about team and family, and it's beautiful. I do want to just say something you said. It's a dichotomy of us. I grew up in a business family. My father, may he rest in peace, was barely went to a dentist, let alone, he was a realtor in New York City. He was great to learn things from. My brothers ahead of me were one lawyer, one business. So I was really the first dentist, but I always felt gifted that I understood certain things with leases and things you could get in the lease and, receivables and payables and hiring and this. So I knew a lot going in, but then, if you have that, you always look, oh, I wish I had a retired dentist or an older dentist as a father because he would guide me. So you know what? Everyone's got their own allotment or plot, and we make the most of it, obviously. So we arrive in this similar spots together, but you never had the desire to stay in sunny Florida. I was like me, it was Boston all the way. And for me, it was New York all the way. So is that how it went?
No, actually, I thought I was gonna end up back down there, and I interviewed, with this practice in Palm Beach Gardens area. It felt and seemed like the perfect fit, but I had just finished a 2-year implant-focused residency, and I was determined to place and restore implants. And this dentist told me, "Don't try to be a super dentist. We have specialists that do the surgery. You just focus on the restoration." And that just didn't sit right with me, and I knew it just wasn't the right fit. So I ended up finding the practice where I am today, and just ended up staying there.
It's just a message to everybody, really is that you really have to follow the circumstances because we don't have a choice, but to look at the bright side. I mean, all of us, I was thinking of staying in Philly after Penn. I had a job offer, but I also wanted to go back to New York. Something happened in the way the job was being presented, and I decided to go back to New York. You go to Boston, build a great practice, Acton Dental Associates. You seem like you have staff there since you started dentistry. They seemed like tight knit, really very smooth. What was it with the doctor there and yourself? Did you go in and build that office, or did you take it over from a doctor? How did you acquire that?
Yeah, I'm a partner. We're 50-50. My partner's about 11 years older than me.
Right.
So it's just a good fit. But it was an ongoing practice that I associated in. And I knew that I liked the town, I liked the patients, I liked the culture, from having been working there so long, that ultimately I knew it was the right practice to buy into.
Mhm. It's a funny thing, I listened to both you guys, and the doctor, I'll leave his name, it's a tougher name, Dr. K, he was talking about insurance and, that we help you with insurance and all that, but it does seem like you sort of were the motivating move, or the real, the guiding light into leaving the PPO world. And everyone should know that your practice, you spearheaded or steered your practice into the fee-for-service world. And that must have been a shock for your partner or for the team. But how did it work out in the last year or so with you guys? Are you happy you did it? Please elaborate on that.
I couldn't be more re-energized than
Really?
I am right now. And we did this strategically. We actually started becoming less insurance dependent after COVID. We started strategically with our smallest PPO plans, and we saw we could do it. We had some patients leave, but most of them stayed, and we actually had patients leave and then come back. And it was all about the relationships, building good quality relationships with the patients. And then 2 years ago, we dropped our second biggest, which was Blue Cross Blue Shield. And then last year, we dropped Delta, which was 50% of our practice. And we lost some patients, that's gonna happen, but we grew by reduction. We were at a major capacity issue. I was running around with my head cut off.
No.
We had 3 associates, we had to hire all these temporary hygienists, which are super expensive,
Super expensive here.
and we're just running around, and we felt, that we could do it, with the right relationships with patients, getting the team on board, and trying to spread the message to patients that you can still come and see us. That was the biggest barrier to get over patients' mindset, is that we're no longer in network, but you can still come to our practice. There's going to be some differences, and you pay up front and you get reimbursed. There may be more of a copay, but we try to focus the conversation on the quality of care and steer it away from insurance. And for the most part, it's worked. Again, some patients left, but a lot of them that did leave we're starting to see them filter and come back.
So, I mean, you have a young family or youngish. I mean, I don't know how old your children are exactly, but they look beautiful family. Sleepless nights when we make that decision. I mean, do we go to bed feeling, oh, chipper? I could go to bed. I feel great. I just dropped 50% of my practice. Or did you, and let's be real, I mean, did you go to bed and wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh my God, they all left? or was it just something you believed would work?
I believed it would work, but we had the track record that it would work with dropping previous plans, the smaller plans. Then a big step was Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is 20% of our practice. We saw we could do it then. And again, I was just exhausted. I was running around like crazy. And I felt like even if we lost, 45% of our patients, that's the cut we're giving, the markdown we're giving these patients anyway. So I did not fear it. I slept fine, and I knew that we would be okay. And I think that's probably the biggest reason why dentists don't pull the trigger and go out of network is fear. And if you do it strategically, you do it right, you get your team on board, and you build those relationships with patients, and try to control the narrative and get out in front of it and tell the patients why you're doing this and what it's going to look like, then you'll come out on top.
For those of you that don't know, or Dr. Eric Block has a wonderful podcast. Eric, could you just tell me the name of it? Because I think it's appropriate right now. Is it the
Yeah, my brand is the Stress-Free Dentist, and
Good.
stressfreedentist.com, and that's the podcast, is the Stress-Free Dentist podcast.
It's awesome. So I was trying to, for those of you that didn't catch it, I was trying to bait him into saying that he got a little stressed. But no, still no stress there. Stress free, just like you preach it. It was beautiful. I must tell you, I should have taken your podcast a long time ago, because every major decision for me came with some trepidation, some unnerve, and what you say about some of the docs that don't do it exactly. I made an excuse in Lincoln Center that we would take some great PPOs and use it as marketing. Now, they came in and did big cases, but if I knew then what I know now, I definitely would have taken some of my associates who are still there, thank God, advice and dropped more insurances. So I think it's an amazing, it really is such internal fortitude that you're saying that really comes to the fruition and says, we are good enough to not take this. And I think kudos to you and your team. Anybody who get lost? Did you lose an insurance person? Could your manager handle the new wave and the new way of thinking? Was that seem smoother? And
Yeah, and
all the above.
the Stress-Free Dentist brand or mantra is that there will be stress. It's how you deal with it. This is a high stress profession we chose. This is not an easy profession.
Yeah.
There's going to be sleepless nights. There's going to be bad reviews. There's going to be uncomfortable conversations with staff members or patients, but it's a marathon and not a sprint is the mantra, and that don't beat yourself up if something doesn't go right. And yes, the first, I would say, 3 months was hard on everyone. I knew we would come out, at the end of it, but there was a lot of phone calls, patients calling and complaining, and they were worried, and um, it was a lot for the staff. That has totally died down now, because we've gone past the first year, and it even died down after that 6-month, 7-month time period when patients had already been through their one cycle of cleanings, and they're coming back in around for their second cycle. But initially, you got to keep the conversation focused on why those patients are there in the first place. They're there because of the quality of care, the team, the equipment, the technology we invest in, not because of the insurance.
And that we must touch on. But before we touch on technology, and really you are full of tech, and that's something you talk about a lot. Just curious, did you think when you did it, you and your partner were thinking maybe we have to increase our marketing budget, or you knew, I'm just trying to think of dentists out there that would say, well, we're going to have to put away another 5 grand this or 10 grand a year or more to supersede and really counteract the loss of these patients? Or did you just feel we're going to evaluate it in 6 months and we're going to see what the end result is? What was your thinking?
We actually doubled down on just SEO,
Yep.
non-paid advertisements, and really just focusing on keywords and Google SEO,
Right.
high value services. We were now I do clear aligners, I do sleep and airway, again with implants, same day crown milling, 3D printer. Really focus on the high value treatments. We have a membership plan, so we tried to focus. If patients were looking to move away from their insurance, we had a membership plan to offer. But we also we saved money because we were able to let go of that temporary hygiene staff, which was just killing us with overhead. And again, we were at a capacity issue. Now, I read a stat somewhere that 30% of assistants and hygienists within 5 years are going to retire. So this problem ain't going away anytime soon. So I think it's a great time for dentists out there to start thinking about going out of network because it's just going to get harder and harder to find staff. And where are you going to put these patients if you don't have the staff to treat them?
The unfortunate thing is the service could also in Main Street Dental where listen, I never knock anybody's business plan because dentistry serves a need for all different types. But if you have to do things with less, it's scary.
Yeah.
Some of us get the good number for a crown and we could take what we want. We're in great areas. Or we just made our practices and guided them that way. But some people are booked into an area and they're locked in. And for them to start over again, I remember, there's certain, different fellowships and different clubs that you go to, LVI and somewhat, and they teach a lot of this. And sometimes I've met a couple of dentists that were in areas that it just should have been done in maybe more of a gradual way. You have a big practice, you've decided that's it, quality's good. If I lose 40%, still I'm busy and enough and doing the quality work we want to do. But somebody with getting low fees may not be able to afford that because they're not running in. So everybody needs to listen to what a lot of people are saying, but evaluate your own and make sure that this is great for you. I mean, Dr. Block has an office that I could tell you that he just mentioned. It has a same-day crown printer, and I think it's a legitimate lab functioning. It looks monstrous so it looks great, and it probably adds tremendous amount to your same-day dentistry. When you can mill a crown or print a guide, a surgery guide, you can really do a lot. So maybe you can talk to us about that a little bit. How's that changed?
It absolutely can, and I used to, try to schedule my day based off of goals and production, goals and collection goals,
Yeah.
and I always struggled with, the crown. The crown is, split in half, you have the prep and then you have the insert, and all the production and collection or the collection went towards the insert, yet that was a much quicker procedure. Now with same-day crowns, the collection and production is all same day. So, focused on your daily or weekly goals, is more accurate. And the other thing I just got tired of is temporary crowns. You know, again, the staffing issue not going away, and to teach a staff member to make a good temporary crown is one of the hardest things you can do. And, for sure, if there's a cosmetic case, an anterior case, still we'll make it temporary if needed, depending on the situation, or send to a local, high aesthetic lab, depending on the situation. But patients love it. They love the same day. They don't want to deal with the temporary crown. It takes about an hour to mill, maybe a little bit less. I'll give them one of my books, have them go to get a car wash. They come back, and they're, typically more than happy to do it same day and not have to deal with the temporary crown.
So last question on this. We touched on it, but you and I spoke about it. But you made this very nice website announcement, and I watched it because we've done that in a number of our offices. And I'm just curious to know how that, I think it was maybe the end of 23, beginning of 24, you told us listeners, but you told your patients that your insurance will not be accepted and we have other means. And you were so polite about it. My question, sometimes people say, why don't you wait till they come in? You explain to them that you're going to fill out everything today, and then you let them know. My question, I'm wondering how you felt, how it went that way. Were people appreciative that you were so open? Do you feel you could have lost fewer if you did it differently?
I think there's nothing better than that one-on-one communication with the patient, and starting, 6 months or even a year before you go out of network, to have that conversation with a patient once, twice, 3 times. I made some videos, I felt like out of necessity because I listen and I recommend this for any dental office, and I tell the staff, we listen to phone calls, and it's not to criticize anyone, it's to review it and see how we can improve. And a lot of patients just were kept calling and they didn't get it. "Why are you dropping my insurance? I can't come and see you anymore." And like, Judy, we've had this conversation 2 times. You can still come here. So out of necessity, I felt I had to make some social media posts, some videos. We emailed them to patients. We texted them. I felt like I had to do everything I could to get the message across.
Yeah.
But there's nothing better than that one-on-one
Yeah.
chat you have with a patient.
Yeah. And your size of practice probably, that needs some running time, to
Mhm.
get to the people that are very dear and near to the practice. But that's great. What a decision. But you're somebody that really has positioned himself for both the now and the future. I mean, the Stress Free podcast, for those of the listeners that don't know, and I did not know, Dr. Block is a children's author as well, and he wrote some children's books. And I'd love for you to talk about what motivated you, first of all, to see the vision of the podcast world. I mean, listen, Block, you're a visionary in your own world. I mean, I got to give you the credit that it is. You saw the implants, your fee for service, and now you're writing children's books. So somebody knows what they're doing. But no, seriously, it's great. So what made you get into the podcasting or the stress-free dentist, early on? I mean, that's, just really kudos.
It was the quarantine. I was stuck. We couldn't practice. My office was technically closed for about 2 months. And I literally said, I can't just sit here and do nothing but eat my kids' leftover dino nuggets. And I started to do things that I'd never done before. I just got this light switch went on.
Mhm.
Before the quarantine, I was just a dentist. That's all I did was dental office, dentistry. That's all I knew. And then I had the time to think, and I figured, who knows how long this quarantine is going to last. I had overcome a period of burnout and felt like I could share my story and help some other dentists out there. And that's where the book and the podcast came from. And then I just kept writing books. My first children's book called My Leftover Dino Nuggets came from that story. And then the light switch, even when I went back to practicing, never turned off. And I keep looking for problems to solve and things to do that I'm passionate about. And I really feel like having these side gigs or these other things that I'm interested has helped me become a better dentist and enjoy dentistry more because my life is not just about dentistry anymore. I've had these other things that I'm interested in. I also wanted to leave a legacy for my kids, for who I was and what I'm all about. That's another reason why I write books and create content is to, hey, let the other dentists, my kids, let them know what I was all about, and hopefully I could help some people out there.
So here's a guy who runs a big practice, decided to be a partner. I'm sure it cost you some nuggets to be a partner in a beautiful practice and then take it to private with all the bells and whistles, all the needed technology you have, decided to just really go out there and write. And it's amazing. What do you have advice for people that, feel that there's a problem, they want to solve it, or they feel they could also gain to the point where they want to embark their knowledge and help people? How did it happen? I mean, in the sense, what I'm asking is like at the beginning, it just didn't, everybody wants to hear me. And now you're putting out some really popular things and people are listening to you. So how did it go? And I could be asking this selfishly, but I could also be asking it for some of the people out there who want to follow in some of our footsteps.
I think the biggest eureka moment I had is when I picked up the phone. This is about halfway through my career. I was going through a tremendous amount of burnout, and I finally reached out and I called a local therapist and just started digging into why I was so anxious and what was going on in my head, why I was burnt out, and it was all just it was up here. It was me putting too much pressure on myself, me trying to be a perfectionist, me beating myself up if something didn't go right. And I was able to turn that around. And, big message to any dentists out there, especially the young dentists. If you feel like you're struggling, if you feel like you're burnt out, you feel like you regret your place in dentistry, you got to reach out for help. And that could be in the form of a therapist, a mentor, a coach, a consultant, for sure, peers. But don't go through this journey alone because a lot of times, and men especially are not good at this, we will stuff our emotions deep down. And if you push them down, picture like you're pushing a beach ball down under the water, eventually it's going to pop up. And unfortunately, that's when dentists turn to alcohol, they turn to substance abuse, worst case, they turn to suicide. This is a difficult profession. And to not go through this alone, reach out for the help and do it sooner the better. We tell patients, you have this small cavity, you got to get it taken care of, or else it's going to turn into a big cavity. That big cavity is going to turn into a crown. It could turn into a root canal. It could turn into a cracked tooth and need an extraction. The longer you wait, the bigger these problems get and the harder they are to get out of them. So reach out, the sooner the better is a big piece of advice.
Tremendous advice, Eric. On a serious note, that is tremendous advice. And too many of us think we're rocks, whether it be we're the pillars in our family, the practice, but so much behind closed doors. People are struggling. They're struggling with making ends meet, supporting their family, but forgetting about the finances. I mean, you're right. We are delivering. Nobody wants to be in our chair. Nobody's saying, great, today's the day I go to the dentist. And it does affect you. Now, some people love it because they're getting something done that they've always wanted to. But I think your advice, I got to tell you, Eric, throughout this entire podcast, you've given from the beginning of a career, and that's what I'm looking for, from the beginning of a career of just knowing you wanted to be involved in surgery, to getting involved in a practice and staying there a long time because they probably treated you like gold because you probably added so much to it, and then taking a practice, coming fee for service, and still embarking your knowledge. I got to tell you, I said it at the beginning, but now I'll tell you, it's a real privilege to have you on and to talk to you. And I think dentistry with people like yourself coming up and taking the next reins they're in good hands. And I'm really happy we had a chance to talk and really shed a tremendous bit of advice on listeners out there for people that are a little bit in a quagmire, whether you want to do this or that. I think the words you keep hearing from me is passion. The words you're hearing from Dr. Block is focus, is passion, and believe in yourself. I mean, he never thought twice. It was the right thing. He knew what was going to happen and he went for it. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity. And by the way, this is a great profession. It does get to all of us. So his advice with seeking a therapist, I agree. I do agree. And it's very important because you don't want to go through this alone. And it's enjoyable once you get to the other side of that. Anything else you want to add, Dr. Block? And I look so forward to meeting up with you in one of the shows that we'll bump into, but I really do. I really appreciate your candor and, your genuineness. But anything else you want to leave with us before I take too much time?
Yeah, I'm going to leave off with two things. You can always reach out to me. I'm an open book, info@thestressfreedentist.com. Check out thestressfreedentist.com. Also check out www.iadlc.com. That's the International Academy of Dental Life Coaches. And like I said, if you're feeling like you're struggling, or if you feel like everything's doing well, but you just want to get to that next level, 99%, you want to get to 99.9%, we'll match you up with a life coach that understands dentistry. So check it out.
Say that again, www.
.iadlc.com.
That's awesome. We thank you so much, Dr. Block. And I want to tell you, you're always welcome. And I really appreciate you giving us the time and the knowledge. We'll look for you at Stress Free. And I hope to meet you at one and see you at one of the shows. But I thank everybody. I want to say goodbye to Dr. Block. So, Dr. Block, thank you for your time. We'll catch up to you down the road. Bye-bye. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say goodbye and just really listen to that last 35 minutes with Dr. Eric Block. So exciting, so much information, life coaches for all of us, and really great synergies between myself and Dr. Block in regards to moving towards a private type of practice, but also with technology and just doing modalities in your practice that years ago would be referring out. Tremendous advice he's given us. I'm so grateful. I wanted to say thank you so much for my listeners listening. We are going to bring you some great doctors coming up. If you didn't see Dr. Solomon prior, it was a real hoot, but really had to grow just a wonderful practice in New York City. So I want to say without further ado, thank you so much. Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. Look for me, comment, send me questions. Don't hesitate to ask me anything. And one thing you'll find as we keep interviewing some of the really quality guys out there, everybody wants to shed their light. Everybody wants to help. So if you have a question, whether it be me, Dr. Block, Dr. Solomon, or future guests, Dr. from OrthoBrain, right? Dr. Gurman, whoever you, just reach out. I'm sure people want to help you and people want to give you guidance if they're needed. But in the interim, be well. I'll see you on Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. Thank you so much.